So when I went on the Disney cruise, I actually went to the Disney Vacation Club meeting or presentation because it was a 30-minute presentation. They weren't super pushy, and I got a free Stitch doll with it, the magnets ones, and I literally wanted to talk about like my opinions on it, okay? Because it's a timeshare. A timeshare never gonna be worth it, okay? And I can't remember how much it costs. So it's based on points. So the lowest amount of points that you can get is 150 points, and like the highest amount is, I don't even know if there's a limit, but you'd have to be like filthy rich to go past that, right? And if I remember correctly, let me do the calculations because they were averaging the 200 points per individual. Like generally what people bought were 200 points. I think when they presented to us, it was like 230 per point. So 200 points would be like $47,000 that you pay up front. But you're not, like, a timeshare is like you don't own this plot of land for the rest of your life. It's a contract that you own part of Disney, and it lasts 40 years. If I remember correctly, it's 40 years. Okay. And so with those points, you basically can use it to spend at any of their resorts. They also have partnering places, so you can technically go abroad, like to other countries, with Disney partners and stay there. And it's not like Disney themed. Like, so you could go to Paris and just stay at a partnering hotel. So it could be like Marriott or something like that, right? And use those points. But I'm like, why would you? Anyways, if you're like a big Disney person. Also, like, why would you buy the timeshare if you're not a big Disney person, right? But anyways, so basically 200 points, like when I was looking at their chart, 200 points, like for two people, 200 points could get you maybe like 2 to 3 weeks at like their cheapest place. And then for a family of four, maybe you get like 10 days at their cheapest, like tier, going to a Disney resort, okay? And you'd have to be like at the bare bottoms, right? And they also have a system called the bank and borrow. So basically you can borrow from the year before. So you can save, right, for a year, the year before, and then you can borrow from the future year. So technically at one point you could have like 3 years worth. So if you had 200 points, you could have 600 points at one time, but you wouldn't be able to travel the year before or the year after. And it only lasts the year before, year after, right? So basically you can save some points for the following year, but it doesn't transfer over past that, right? Anyways, and so literally it's $47,000 up front for like 200 points, which would give you like every year like probably anywhere between 1 to like 3 weeks, depending on how big your family is, and if you're like being like really frugal, right? Really frugal would get you like 1 to 3 weeks. You'd probably only, if you're like wanting to stay at the best resort or whatever, the 200 points is not gonna give you far. A couple days maybe. Okay. And so literally, then on top of that, you gotta remember you only own it for 40 years. Every year you have to pay, every year you have to pay like maintenance fees, which I remember calculating, and it's per point too. The maintenance fees is based on per point too. And if I remember correctly, like calculating out, like the maintenance fees per point ended up being like $1,200 or $1,500 a year anyways. And I was like, shut the front door. So you're paying $47,000 in advance, and then you're paying like $1,200 to $1,500 after that. What happens if at one point you become poor? You still gotta pay that $1,500. I don't know what happens if you lose your timeshare, but you wasted $47,000. So anyways, so no, I don't think it's worth it. But I know there's lots of Disney goers that do think it's very worth it. And I just feel like you have to be going there every year. And literally in the fine print, it literally goes, yeah, you can expect to see savings in 6 to 12 years. 6 to 12 years? The contract is only for 40 years. That's crazy work. And I love Disney, but that's crazy work.